Life Management Science Labs would like to acknowledge that we live and produce this podcast on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people. We'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands of our listeners and our international colleagues. We'd like to pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Hello and welcome to Self-Improvement Atlas, the personal science insight podcast produced by LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. We are champions of life management science, providing structured insights informed by science and inspired by practice on key aspects of conscious living. Each week, we bring you scientific and practical insights on each element with the expert knowledge of professionals in the field. I'm your host, Aditi Kutty. Let's get on with the show. Today, I'm sitting with Amy Dirks, a sports nutritionist. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm super excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Now, you're here to talk to us about nutrition, especially nutrition in regards to mental health. Could you tell us a little bit more about how you would kind of define this and a bit of your personal story with this?
Sure. In my work, I have noticed a huge increase in the amount of young athletes, some of my wellness clients, some of my friends' kids, having more anxiety, more depression, more trouble focusing, brain fog, like all of these things that have to do with your mental health. And so what I know now is how much what we eat and obviously lifestyle factors, as well, like how we sleep and physical activity and so forth. But I think 80% of it is truly like what we put into our bodies. Can affect the brain. The gut is considered the second brain. It communicates with the brain, so it makes complete sense that what we eat turns into, like, systemically in the body, can affect our mental health. So I recently did an article on this because I had just seen on LinkedIn another athlete had taken his life. And even my oldest daughter, who plays competitive volleyball, and I just see the roller coaster, the ups and downs, and again, there's lots of influences, but I truly believe that it's really influenced by what we're putting into our bodies.
Yeah, for sure. The mental health in sports and amongst athletes is such a huge, huge issue, and it does not get discussed enough.
You're right. It's definitely overlooked. It's always about, let's work harder, let's train longer, let's hire more strength coaches, and they completely overlook the psychological aspect as well as the nutrition aspect.
For sure. All right, we'll go into more details about that a little later. First, we might just get to know you a little bit.
Okay.
Um, and I'm just going to share some really quick questions, and you can answer them as quickly as you can. First thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
So, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the word book?
Um, so my favorite nutrition book of all times is by Dr. Mark Hyman, and it's called Food. What the heck should I eat?
Oh, that's a catchy
Yeah.
title.
Yeah, I know, right? It's so amazing, and he does such a good job of putting it in practical terms. And so I reference it a lot, and I tell people to get the book. It just helps to really clear up a lot of confusion about food. And so, I teach them that, but if they want another reference to have, then that's a great book to have on hand.
All right, we'll keep that in mind.
Yeah.
What about movie?
Pretty Woman. I love Julia Roberts as an actress, but, like, I probably should have said Erin Brockovich, because that movie was a little bit more, instrumental but I just 2 movies that I loved.
Woman is still it's an enjoyable movie. It's a good
Yeah,
time.
Yeah, it's like, the girl that didn't have anything that ends up, with everything. So what girl doesn't love that fairy tale?
Of course, the Cinderella story.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
what about podcast?
Wellness mama.
Mhm.
I really, sorry, I should have said yours, but no, I really love her podcast. She interviews a lot of great people in the wellness world, experts, and she has like 6 or 7 kids of her own. And so she doesn't just talk about like parenting and kids and how to feed your kids and so forth. It's like all across the board. And so I've learned, about a lot of products from that podcast and practical tips, and so I really enjoy that podcast.
Yeah, it's kind of like focusing on the mother or the parent as a person as opposed to just an extension of the child.
Totally. And she had her own like personal health journey that she struggled with, and when you relate to that, like it makes you want to know more and listen, more. So
All right. Famous role model.
well, I mentioned Dr. Hyman. I really love him. He's a physician, started off like he was very sick and went through the whole like standard medical system, and was given pill after pill after pill, and that's kind of what sparked his journey as an integrative and functional medicine doctor.
Mhm.
And again, with my husband being a physician, he's a family practice doctor, so it's nice to have that neutral common ground between the two of us, because sometimes my husband
Mhm.
and I will bicker a little bit about a certain topic because he's trained a certain way, and I am more natural and holistic, and so Dr. Hyman sort of clears up a lot of that for us. So
Mhm.
I would say he's probably not famous like a movie star famous, but in my world, he's famous.
Yeah, I mean, as long as he's famous to you, that's all that matters on this show right
Yeah,
now. So,
exactly.
um, what about a course you've completed?
Goodness, girl, I'm like constantly doing courses and webinars, and I just did one yesterday called Biomarkers and
Mhm.
Athletes, and
Mhm.
so it was a lot about omega-3 status, and how that helps athletes and hydration, and so even though like I have my basic knowledge, like I'm constantly
Mhm.
trying to learn more, and
Yeah.
plus nutrition is always evolving and changing, and so it's hard to keep up sometimes.
It's good to always be learning, though. It's good to kind of be in that dynamic environment and that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
right, I think we've gotten to know Amy Dirks.
Yay.
Um, let's move on to, I guess, the meat of the episode now, which is about personal science and nutrition, and your specialty. So, I guess to start off very, very broad, how do you define personal development? What does that mean to you?
Personal development to me is the definition of enhancing you.
Mhm.
And however that looks like, because everybody is so unique. And so it could be enhancing your career, like I said, like the webinars and
Mhm.
reading books and so forth, enhancing skills in something. Like I'm trying to learn how to play the guitar. It's not going so well, but enhancing your health, and your passions, so,
Mhm.
and it's an ongoing thing. It's not stagnant. Like we should constantly be trying to become a better version of ourselves every day. So, there's definitely different components of personal development, from a mental standpoint, from a physical
Mhm.
standpoint, from an emotional. Some people may spiritually like. So I think it looks different for everyone, but I think it's just about how can you enhance the things that you love and the goals that you have.
Mm. And what do you feel might be like the challenges with kind of enhancing yourself?
Yourself.
Mhm.
Like, we kind of tend to get in our own way a lot of times. I definitely am guilty of that. There's that self-doubt, there's that imposter syndrome, and just letting, I guess, from a health and wellness standpoint, it's letting life get in the way because we tend to let our personal health, physical health, sort of put on the back burner. It goes to the bottom of the list. It's no longer a priority. And um, there's a quote, Henry Ford: obstacles are those frightful things you see when you take your eyes off your goal. And so that's, in a way, like, if we don't have something to work towards, and to have things that we're striving for and goals, especially like with my wellness clients and athletes, like, then there's not as much purpose in life. So
Yeah. Yeah, intrusive thoughts are definitely such a big factor in affecting you getting your own goals. I've definitely been there. It's not easy to get through.
I mean, it is hard. It really is. Cause, like,
Mhm.
I'm trying to promote myself and what I believe is great for people and athletes. And but there's definitely that, like, oh, when I see someone else's Instagram feed and, like,
Yeah.
oh, I should be doing more or better, or
Mhm.
you can really get into your own head. And then, it's some days it's harder to stay motivated than others. And
Mhm.
again, like, there's lots of factors that are involved with that. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I guess now kind of moving into your main focus with it, which is nutrition. What part does nutrition play in all of this?
I would say the main thing that I want people to think about with nutrition is that it equals energy.
Mhm.
Um, because when we fuel our bodies with, healthy foods and the right nutrients, and we not only feel better, we have more energy, we sleep better, our minds are healthier. Um, Food literally breaks down into chemical
Mhm.
messengers in the body, and so the food we eat essentially tells our body what to do. So, um, are we fueling our bodies to heal ourselves,
Mhm.
or are we fueling our bodies to kill ourselves? And I know that's a morbid way of saying it, but um we have so many stigmas around food, and it has become such a social thing, and it's marketed to
Mhm.
us like crazy. And most of the time it's not the good stuff that's marketed to us.
Yeah.
We have this backward system of promoting processed and convenience and fast foods that hurt our health versus promoting the things that give us longevity and quality
Yeah.
of life, and we make it more expensive. I hate
Oh
it.
my god, yeah, it is so expensive to buy healthy food.
It
And
is, it is. And you really can eat healthy on a budget, but most people don't know how to do that. They don't know
Mhm.
what canned goods to get, what frozen foods to get, and how to combine things to make these healthier options on a cheaper, budget. So it's tough. It's a tough time right
Mm.
now.
Yeah, and you were talking about how, like, it kind of provides you the energy, and I was just thinking, like, all that stuff you were saying about, like, working towards being the best possible you, there's so much energy associated with that, like, it's labor, and you don't even realize it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Food is literally the most powerful medicine that you can have.
Yeah, for sure. Um, well, I mean, you've already kind of discussed why it's so important to take care of our nutrition, but maybe what should we be putting in our body, um, in order to in order to get that energy?
Sure. Yeah, like I was saying, food can either create inflammation, which inflammation is what leads to disease,
Mhm.
or it can help take care of inflammation in the body, which leads to, like I said, health and wellness. And so deep down, I really think we all know, like, what foods are probably good for us and what
Mhm.
foods aren't. We have just been sort of brainwashed, and we have so many other things going on that we are okay with letting others tell us what to do, and letting, whether it's like a governing body that's the food pyramid, telling us what we should eat. And we, not that we don't think for ourselves completely, but when it comes to food, we kind of do. We just sort of push the easy button and go that route. And it's totally understandable because it's, kind of the times that we're living in. But I mean, everybody knows vegetables are good for you,
Mhm.
and they truly are like the earth's medicine,
Mhm.
the most powerful drug. Like there's so many nutrients, and the beauty of them is that they're nutrient dense, but they're not like calorie dense. So you can have a ton of them, and they barely break down into sugar. So fruits are next. I mean, fruits are also have lots of vitamins and minerals, but they do have fructose, so they are a little bit higher in sugar. So I tend to, try to tell people vegetables first, fruits
Mhm.
second.
Mhm.
Um, and then, you have like healthy fats. That's hugely important, which I'm sure we'll touch on this a little bit,
Mhm.
because they have a lot to do with the brain.
Yeah.
So healthy fats like uh, olives, olive oil, avocados, healthy fatty fishes like salmon and
Mhm.
sardines, and nuts and nut butters and seeds. And, there's tons of healthy fats. And a lot of people are scared to eat fat because they're afraid it's going to make them fat. And
Mm.
it's truly the opposite. Eating healthy fats helps us to lose body fat, actually. But back in the, what was it, the 80s and 90s, like the sugar industry was, they were the ones that were like saying fat was bad, and so they took
Yeah.
fat out of foods and put sugar in it. So yeah.
Yeah.
um so those
Definitely a
are those are
massive
some.
marketing campaign. Fat gets such a bad rep.
Woo, totally, totally. It's making a comeback though, so that's
Mm.
good.
That's true.
And there's a lot of other foods too. I mean, if you do eat meat, there's eggs and like lean proteins like fish and chicken and turkey. And so really you just kind of like almost have to pick options from each of those macronutrients, carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, and um, combine those three, and you're looking at a pretty healthy combo of
Mm.
meals.
Yeah, for sure. Um, in terms of like you mentioned, healthy fats are really good for the brain.
Mhm.
Is there anything else that you can get in food, like on a chemical level, that is kind of really good for your brain?
Oh yeah. And just, for the record, I don't emphasize like foods as it contains these vitamins or these minerals or, these fatty acids or whatever, because there's a disconnect with that. People
Mm.
don't eat vitamin C, they eat an
Yeah.
orange. And
Yep.
and so I try to make it as practical as possible.
Mhm.
But if you do want to get down to that, like, okay, so the healthy fats are like the omega-3 fatty acids. Those are huge for the brain. The brain is actually made of fat and cholesterol, believe it or not, mostly. And so, again, it makes sense to fuel it with those kind of
Fat and
healthy fats.
cholesterol. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you have your omega threes. Magnesium is a great nutrient for the brain. Something I tell the athletes a lot is that magnesium is not always absorbed well in the gut. So
Mhm.
taking an Epsom salt bath is a really good way to get magnesium because it soaks through the skin better than it does through the gut.
Right.
Um, Vitamin C is another big one for immunity, for brain health. All your B vitamins are crucial, and vitamin D, that's a big one too.
Mhm.
That was one that we tested the athletes a lot, and here in the Midwest, we have brutal winters sometimes,
Mhm.
and so people's vitamin D levels drop quite a bit, and it's almost best to get vitamin D through a supplement versus absorbing through food. So
Mm.
vitamin D is another one. selenium, zinc, and selenium. I get selenium through eating 2 Brazil nuts a day. Like,
Okay.
I don't take a supplement for it. I just take it through food because, if you can get nutrients through food, that's food first,
Mm-hmm.
supplement second, because supplement is supposed to be that, like, what you're not getting from your food. But anymore, like, it's hard for us to get in all those nutrients that we need without actually taking like a multivitamin or an
Yeah.
omega-3 fatty acid. So yeah, all of those nutrients in some scientific way, form, or fashion can help with decreasing anxiety, decreasing depression. So I think, obviously that's going to be super important for mental health.
Mm. And you mentioned that you like to put all of those ingredients or chemical breakdowns in the context of food. So I guess what foods would you find that? You mentioned Brazil nuts for selenium. I
Mhm.
think we all know about fish for omega-3. But
Absolutely. And not all fish are created equal. So I
Mhm.
should say that there's the acronym SMASH, SMASH, and it's salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring. Those are the fish that contain the highest amount of omega-3s. Those are some fish that we tend to not eat very often, so you
Mhm.
have to kind of figure out a way to like, I make a sardine salad with capers, and I enjoy that. But salmon is probably the least offensive, fish to eat. So again, like I said, your healthy oils, coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil. Those are three really good ones. Let's see, turmeric and curcumin. If you
Mhm.
can, if you eat curry and certain Indian foods, those are that's a great compound for inflammation, for pain. So I always tell athletes, like, you should be, using a curcumin supplement if you're not
Mhm.
cooking with it often. Fermented foods. So again, the gut is the second brain. The gut creates neurotransmitters,
Mhm.
um, which again are kind of chemical messengers to the brain. So things like serotonin, dopamine, GABA, all of those have something to do with the gut. And so fermented foods are going to help create a healthy gut environment. So I'm sure you've heard of probiotics.
Mhm.
Those are going to be, the healthy bacteria. And we tend to have way less healthy bacteria and way more of the bad bacteria in our gut, our yeast,
Mhm.
because we're eating sugar a lot, and sugar feeds those kind of bacteria. So eating probiotic rich foods like kefir, drinking kombucha, um, sauerkraut, kimchi. There's a lot of
Mhm.
different fermented foods that you could kind of start tinkering around with and trying to add to your diet. Um, berries have, the darker the berry, the more antioxidants it has. So blueberries, strawberries, blackberries, those are all really great. And those are actually have less sugar than most other
Mhm.
fruits. So again, a really good fruit to have. Actually, coffee is
Mhm.
really good.
Okay.
And I would say you have to probably try to find like a good coffee, not
Yeah.
like a cheapy one, but maybe an organic one or fair trade, or something with good sustainable practices.
Mhm.
The caffeine in the coffee actually is pretty good for the brain, as long as you don't have too much of it. So
Yeah.
it helps to stimulate some of those neurotransmitters. Dark chocolate is another one,
Mhm.
but again, it needs to be a good dark chocolate. Leafy greens, you cannot go wrong with, throwing some spinach or kale in your smoothie, or
Mhm.
having a salad. Even throwing it in your eggs, like your scrambled eggs. And eggs is
Mhm.
another good one too, because the yolk is healthy fat, has choline. So eggs are great. And then the last one I would say is green tea. Some of the compounds in green tea have been shown to decrease anxiety, improve memory, and then just, boost the brain functioning in general. So
I'm so glad you just named a whole bunch of foods that like I already really enjoy and have in my diet. Because
I'm glad to hear that.
it's one of the things I guess I'm really worried about is that I'm actually quite a picky eater.
Hmm.
So I'm not, especially with vegetables and that kind of things, I'm not so much like there are some ingredients I straight up won't have,
Yeah.
but it's kind of more I need them prepared in a certain way in order for them to be delectable.
And that's usually why people have those aversions to vegetables, because they've
Mhm.
had a bad experience growing up. Their mom overcooked the asparagus and it was mushy, and whatever it might be. They either haven't had it in an enjoyable way,
Mhm.
and they don't know how to make it more palatable for them. But I will say this: when you do start to reduce the overly processed foods,
Mhm.
Dr. Hyman calls them Franken foods because they're made in a lab, just like
Mhm.
Frankenstein was. Those foods are basically chemicals, not real food at all, and they sort of trick the brain. They trick our palate because they're
Mhm.
so hyper palatable,
Yeah.
and we crave them. We want more of them. I mean, hello Doritos. Like, who
Yeah.
doesn't love Doritos? But my point is that when you start to eat real foods and decrease those processed foods, your palate changes, and you
Mhm.
actually like I would eat a raw asparagus right now without anything on it. It doesn't have to have butter or salt and pepper or
Mhm.
but at first you probably need to make it a little bit better, but you tend to start loving just the fresh taste of foods, and you can tell a huge difference when you have the fake foods after you've gotten to that point.
Yeah, definitely. I guess how would people kind of go about creating um, a meal plan, for example, that might work for them? You mentioned already, vegetables first and fruits, and then kind of like a hierarchy.
Yeah.
What should people be looking for?
So again, it's kind of about incorporating something from all those macronutrients. So the best combination is to have some fiber, which comes from your vegetables or fruit,
Mhm.
protein, which again, if you're a carnivore, then you would have, like, a serving of fish or chicken, or whatever protein source you like. And then a little bit of fat sprinkled in. So that could be salad dressing. It could be avocado on your salad. It could be nuts sprinkled in your quinoa or rice, and lots of different options. But I usually tell people I don't worry about calories so much, because it's more about the quality of those calories that they're eating, and if they're putting the right combinations together, then they're getting what they need. Um, so I tell them to take their plate, divide it in half, and one half is their vegetables,
Yeah.
whatever vegetables they like. The other half, divide that in half, and then a fourth of it would be your protein, and the other fourth is kind of like those like starchier foods, like it could
Mhm.
be rice or some sort of noodle, or fruit, and then you have your fat sprinkled in there. And so fat is a super dense energy source, um, and then protein as well. So I use the example of, if you were to take a cracker and put it on your tongue and don't chew it, what happens to that cracker? It literally like dissolves right there on your tongue and
Mhm.
starts digesting. And so that's kind of what simple carbohydrates do in our body.
Right.
But if
Yeah.
you put that piece of chicken on your tongue and left it, it would take forever to break down, right? And then
Yeah.
same thing with fat. Fat takes a lot longer. So when you combine those three macronutrients together, you have sustained energy. You're satisfied.
Mhm.
You're not hungry every hour, because most people tend to eat those crackers, cereals, pastas, like those simple carbs that give us maybe a little energy right away, but then it doesn't sustain us at all. So that's usually like how I try to teach people what foods belong in those categories. So that way when I say, if you want to lose weight, you should probably decrease the amount of carbohydrates that you're having per meal, increase your fat intake, and keep your protein consistent throughout the day. Then they'll know what I'm talking about. They've been
Mm.
educated on what foods belong in those different categories.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I guess like for your experiences are that you work with a lot of athletes, you have been an athlete yourself. Um, how how can people kind of apply your advice in everyday life to kind of maybe increase their energy through the day, regardless of their exercise level?
Right. So I'm all about adding in the good and not worrying about taking away the bad for now. So
Okay.
typically, if um, athletes tend to eat a lot of those convenience foods that are marketed to
Mm,
them, especially like the protein powders and the
yeah.
protein bars and the energy drinks and so forth. So I don't start by trying to take that stuff away because then you lose them right away.
Mhm.
It's more about maybe we try to add some water in. That's most important, and just do it right when you wake up in the morning. Just go ahead and have 2 cups of water. That
Mhm.
way, you already start the day a little hydrated. And then like I don't know, like they're all different, and so I try to get to know them.
Mhm.
Um, and then that way I can kind of say, okay, well, I know that you like having a sandwich, for lunch every day. So how about you add, smash some avocado in with the mayonnaise,
Yeah.
or let's add a piece of romaine lettuce to that. And I just try to teach them subtle ways of incorporating some of those healthier foods. And again, like if they like it, then they'll start doing it more
More and more
often.
often. Yeah.
But also like sports can be very cutthroat,
Mhm.
and so it really kind of depends. There's like the concept of ripping the band-aid off. And so, sometimes it's like, no, this is terrible for you. And
Mhm.
I'll show them, like, look at the ingredients. And you don't know what this is. You can't pronounce it. You definitely don't have it in your kitchen to cook with. This is what it does inside your body. This is not what you need to fuel your performance. So when you put
Right.
it into terms of this is going to make you slower, this is going to make you gain body fat, this is going to make you
Mhm.
sleep horribly, whatever terms that they connect with, they'll listen.
Mhm.
Especially if they want to get better at whatever sport. So
Mhm.
um, again, it's subtle. I just try to educate as much as possible, and typically with any teams that I've worked with, I do that first. I'll give a presentation and sort of teach all of those basics, and I over communicate because I'll follow it up with handouts and with emails and
Mhm.
just to stress the importance of it. And it's really nice when you have coaches and staff that are around those athletes that support you and
Mhm.
believe in what you're teaching their athletes. And they kind of follow it themselves. Um, but the best thing is when they come to you and say, you know what, I stopped eating that bagel every day before training and my stomach doesn't hurt anymore. And
Mm.
it's really just about taking one thing and replacing it with something better, but making it in a way that you know that they're going to notice, but not not in a way that they feel deprived, I guess you could
Mm.
say.
So
They're
it's
still
like
getting.
yeah, so it's like baby steps almost.
Yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah, like um and small successes breed more success. I'm a
Mhm.
huge believer in that. I used to be, oh no, it's all or none. I used to be
Mhm.
very like drill sergeant, militant, like because I started off as a personal trainer, and then life happened and I became a mom and, like all this stuff. And like just the more life experiences I've had has made me, um, I guess you could say just more realistic in general.
Mhm.
But everybody has their own journey. And that's why, like, there's no one size fits all diet. Like, there's good and bad about each diet that's out there. And the diet that's best for you is the one that you're going to follow and stick with.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so that's going to be different for everybody. So anyway, I like to start with the basics and work my way into more, thorough, I guess, nutrition.
And what are those foods that you were telling people to just cut to cut out immediately?
Um, so like there were certain bars that
Mhm.
were just really processed, and there's a lot of ingredients that um, will irritate the gut, and you have athletes that experience stomach like cramping and anxiety and things like
Mhm.
that. Like it's not just their nerves, it's like literally their pregame meal or their
Mhm.
little snack that they have beforehand, or they're not recovering properly afterwards. So um like foods that are artificial, that have artificial ingredients, that's one thing. Like I try to point out that artificial ingredients are not good for the body at all, not good for the brain.
Mhm.
Preservatives, if a food has a shelf life that is like a Twinkie, like 100 years or
Yeah.
something crazy,
Mhm.
what do you think it's doing inside of your body? Like your gut cannot break down those preservatives. So
Mhm.
it ends up systemically causing issues down the road,
Mhm.
like leaky gut syndrome or allergies. So many people have these like maybe it's IBS, like irritable bowel syndrome, or they have horrible allergies, and when you take away some of those foods, like it gets better. And I was
Mm.
one of those athletes. Like I had tons of inflammatory issues, and I chalked it up to being an athlete. I thought, well, I'm just putting my body, through the ringer right now, and I'm gonna have like patella tendonitis and plantar fasciitis and biceps tendonitis, and I had acne and I had stomach issues and I had allergies. And you go to an allergist for your allergies and you get medicine. You go to a dermatologist for your face and you get medicine, and that medicine's causing your gut issues, and you go to a doctor for your stomach. And it is crazy that when I did change my diet, like all of those issues went away. So
Mhm.
I'm a firm believer in not having, because I grew up on a lot of processed foods.
Mhm.
My mom was a single mom and worked, and so we had the box mac and cheese and so forth. And
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I think when you avoid those foods that are not real, um, let's see what are like fast foods,
Mhm.
fried foods. There's a lot that, like, even nowadays, like gluten is an issue.
Mhm.
We've started changing the way that we do our wheat crops, and we spray them with Roundup and glyphosate, and that causes a lot of gut issues as well. And so, I hate to be the burden of such bad news, because you don't want to take away people's bread and noodles,
Yeah, of
but
course.
you do kind of have to like be careful with those foods nowadays, because
Mhm.
they get put on the shelf pretty quick, like, and they don't allow them to go through the fermentation process like they used to. And they're foreign in our bodies, and so
Mhm.
again our guts are like, whoa, I don't know what this is. And when it doesn't know what to do with something, again, like it can cause leaky gut, or it'll store it as body fat. It'll just be like, I'll deal with that later. I don't know what
Mhm.
this is. And so then you end up like gaining, unhealthy body fat, and your poor liver is just trying to keep up with, all the detoxification and chemicals. And so anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking of that, and speaking of, I guess, your experiences, I'd love to know more about what you personally have done, um, with regards to nutrition, especially in improving your mental health?
Yeah. So I would say the very first thing, and I always tell clients, athletes, you need to take a probiotic, because if you're not going to start doing everything perfectly, to heal your gut. And so one of the things that you can add is to have a probiotic. And there's lots of them out there. So I think it's okay to change them up, because each probiotic has different strains of bacteria. And
Mhm.
anyway, people will they'll tend to take a pill easier than they will to add those probiotic rich foods into the
Right.
diet.
Yeah.
So we start with a probiotic. So um, I excuse me. So I take a probiotic, and the other thing that I use all the time is an omega-3 fatty acid. So
Hmm.
um, that was huge, like with athletes that have had concussions, or um, just in general inflammation and brain health. So an omega-3 fatty acid is another one. And they say if you eat fatty fish 2 to 3 times a week, then that will help, and that's true. But I still think having that extra insurance by taking an omega-3 is a good idea, especially if
Hmm.
you're someone that is very active all the time.
Mm.
um, I I I use my supplements at night before I go to bed. So when I brush my teeth, I take my supplements. So it's the same like process in my mind, so I don't forget. So that's one thing that I sort of started doing. And also, I tell people to do that because some vitamins and minerals will cause a little bit of stomach issues or nausea, because maybe they need to be taken with food. And so if you take them right before bed and then you go to sleep, then you tend to sleep through some of those feelings, I guess. So that's another thing that I do. I cook at home. Like that's huge. Like you just
Hmm.
don't know what you're getting, what foods they're cooking with, whenever you eat out. I love to eat out and have someone else cook for me. But it's always a good day for me when my family gets together at the table, and we've made a meal. And again, it's not all or none. It doesn't have to be like this gourmet meal or anything.
Hmm.
You can just throw together a bag salad and a rotisserie chicken,
Yeah.
and that's fine. Put some fruit on the side and you're good. um, but that's another thing, is just, bringing dinner back home basically.
Mhm.
And it's so hard because like every single night this week, besides tonight, we've had sports events, because I have two daughters that play volleyball, one's in track. And um, if I didn't prepare something, earlier that day, then you're going to end up stopping somewhere and eating out or getting fast food. And so planning ahead a little bit is just huge. On Sundays I look at my week and I'm like, okay, I know that these 2 nights I am not going to be home to cook,
Mm.
so I'm going to cook something on Monday, and I'm going to make enough to make two other meals. And
Mhm.
we might change it up a little bit by adding some different sauces or salsas, or that taco night turned into nachos another night, like whatever
Yeah.
it might
Yeah.
be. But you cook once, you eat several times, because it's just not practical to be in the kitchen to make every meal all the time.
Hmm.
Um, what else do I do? I actually like to put MCT oil in my coffee.
Hmm.
Um, so it's the term is bulletproofing your coffee.
Okay.
A lot of times I don't eat breakfast. Sometimes I will, but it just depends. And bulletproofing your coffee is a way of adding like some healthy fats into your coffee. And so it gives you energy and sustains you, until you do have that meal. And MCT oil is basically, it stands for medium chain triglyceride, and it's a healthy fat made from coconut oil,
Hmm.
but it's easier to digest than most other fats. So it's actually really beneficial for the gut and the brain.
Mm.
And again, it can be utilized for energy pretty quick. Like, so especially if I'm going to work out in the morning, like I'll have a little coffee with that MCT oil and then I'm
Mhm.
like ready to, that's my energy drink. So,
Right. Yeah.
um, getting good sleep is huge. I turn off the screens. I like always read a book before I go to bed at night. I try to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night,
Mhm.
and I drink tons of water. Um, and every time I eat, I ask myself, okay, am I having a protein? What vegetable can I have with this? And where's my fat?
Mhm.
And so if I'm making a smoothie, then I make sure I have those components. If I'm in a hurry, and like I said, eggs are one of the easiest things for me to throw together, and I'll
Mhm.
just throw in some spinach and tomatoes, or whatever I have, some asparagus, and just make sure that I have those fat, fiber, and protein in there. And um, I I don't know. I don't overthink it, I guess you could say. It's but it wasn't always like second nature for me. I had
Mhm.
to like I went to dietetic school, and it was very traditional, and I've almost retaught myself because I feel like what I learned was antiquated, and now you have to think outside of that box and
Mhm.
sort of be your own doctor and dietitian.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. You have to listen to your body and kind of what it's
That's right.
saying.
That's right.
Um, I just wanted to focus in on you mentioned a couple of words there that maybe our listeners might not be familiar with. Um, Probiotics is one I feel like there's a lot of misunderstanding or mystery around. Do you mind explaining that?
Sure. I guess the buzzword probably came out when the actress Jamie Lee Curtis started promoting Activia
Mhm.
as a way to help her go to the bathroom more often. And but the more and more that we are studying gut health, the more and more we are realizing how important these good bugs or bacteria are for our overall health, and for sure gut health. So there's tons of different strains of bacteria, and the problem is that, again, we feed the bad bacteria with the standard American diet, and we kill the good bacteria. We kill the bad bacteria too with antibiotics. And so we got to a point where we were overprescribing antibiotics for everything, and we just totally killed our gut health. And so then you kind of have to start proliferating those good bacteria again. And like I said earlier, taking a pill, a probiotic pill, is probably the easiest way to get that going. Um, but so on the bottle of a probiotic, you're going to see like what strains of the bacteria that are in that probiotic. You'll also see a number like 30 billion, and it'll say CFUs, and that's colony forming units. So, the more the better, right? The more strains of bacteria, the better. Um, and again, I think like what I usually do is switch around. Like I'll take a probiotic, the same one for 2 to 3 months, and then I buy a different brand and something completely, different, so that I'm making sure I'm getting a variety of good bacteria in my gut.
Yeah, definitely. Um, that does clear things up, I guess, with probiotics quite a bit. I know that's one that I've like logically I know what it means, but
Yeah.
sometimes kind of conceptualizing it can be a little bit hard.
Absolutely. And again, like there's so many out there that it is kind of hard to sift through and which one is the best. And um, I will say that um, there's a spore-based probiotic. Lots more brands are going this route now because our GI system is it's pretty rough. There's
Mhm.
lots of acids, and so sometimes it's hard to really get absorption of some of these supplements and probiotics. And so if it can make it through the gut and get into like our small intestine, and then it's going to be better. And so those spore-based supposedly can get further down into our guts before they proliferate, I guess you could say. So, yeah. So the spore-based is a good option to start with.
Mhm. Okay. You mentioned a lot of different practices with regards to how to improve your nutrition, with regards to mental health. Did you want to pick maybe one of them and mention three good things about what
Oh,
that has done for you?
it's hard to pick just one.
Or a
But
combination of a few?
yeah, well, I mean, I always start with like rethinking your drink. Because I think that, we drink sodas, we drink flavored sparkling waters, whatever it might be. Our coffee drinks, like some of the Starbucks drinks, have
Mm,
triple the amount of sugar in them that you should be having in a day. And so I tend to start with that. And I've seen it happen so many times, like especially with women that want to lose weight, but they're drinking Diet Coke all the time.
mhm,
And you replace the Diet Coke with water, and it makes all the difference. They lose 20 pounds like that. And Diet Coke is supposed to be calorie free, but it it does the same thing in the body as regular soda does, because it tricks the brain in thinking that it's having sugar. And so you still release insulin, and insulin is the fat storing hormone. So unfortunately, everybody, like, diet soda is not any better for you. So I just think, water is involved in every bodily process, and we tend to be dehydrated most of the time. And so if we could just do that one simple thing and try to hydrate ourselves, then you're going to do your brain, your body, your joints, like, because the body is made up of a ton of water. So anyway, I would say that's the simplest strategy to start off with. And there's so many people that are like, I don't want to go to the bathroom that much, but your body has natural ways of detoxifying, and going to the bathroom is one of the ways that it does that. So it's not a
mhm.
bad thing. If you're that busy that you can't drink water and go to the bathroom, then you need to reevaluate what is going on. So that would be one big thing. And really for me personally, it was cutting back on those gluten foods. It was
Mhm,
really causing inflammation for me. And at the time, I thought I was eating right because, I was eating low fat pasta and cereal and, sandwiches, but it was destroying me. So when I eliminated gluten, and I still have it every once in a while, it sneaks in, and it's not like I'm not super strict. I follow the 80-20 rule, like 80% of the time. I usually do the right thing, and I want to take care of my body, but 20% of the time I want to have fun and do,
mhm.
if I
Yeah.
want to have a glass of champagne with my oysters, then I'm going to, or, have a piece of regular pizza instead of the cauliflower crust kind. And so I think that's a more practical approach to sustainability of
Mhm.
whatever your eating style is.
Yeah, it's about
Um,
balance.
it is, and
Yeah.
I don't know that we ever find balance 100%
Mhm,
in all the aspects. It's a goal, right?
mhm.
It's that personal development.
Yeah,
Our goal is to work towards a balance somewhere. So
for sure. You've already mentioned that, like, one of the biggest challenges with personal development in general is yourself.
yeah.
Um, what are kind of more specifically the challenges associated with eating healthier?
Um, time. Time is
Mhm,
one of the biggest things. People just are so busy now. They, again, it's not a priority to
mhm,
to cook at home. Again, we push the easy button. So, time would be the biggest factor. Not knowing, so just not being educated on what they should choose. Because again, what is being pushed at us and marketed is not always the healthiest, but we tend to go with what we're being told,
Mm.
and then budget is probably another thing, like we mentioned earlier. I think eating organic is expensive, you know, buying the healthier groceries, it just seems like
Mm.
it's way more expensive. And um, again, I'm so frustrated with that, because why are we making foods that can cause disease and illness cheap for us to buy?
Mm.
When don't you want everybody to be healthier and not have disease? Like, you should be promoting, the healthier stuff and make it more affordable. So those would be the three main challenges: is yeah, time and education and money.
Mm. And I think the thing about, I don't know if this is the case in America, it's definitely the case in Australia, is that, if you continue to buy processed food or you continue to eat out, that money still adds up and then it still ends up being more expensive than eating healthy and cooking at home.
It sure does. And I do try to point that out to people, is that, listen, you either pay for wellness now or you pay for illness later. So
Yeah.
if you don't have time to invest in yourself right now, or the money to buy healthier groceries, then you're going to have to find time to go to the doctor and to pay for medical bills later, and medicine.
Mhm.
And so it's your choice to be proactive or to be reactive. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, most people don't take it that seriously until, like, people don't know what their health truly is until it's gone, until they lose it.
Yeah.
And that's when they get serious about it, and it's unfortunate. And like I told you earlier, my husband's a doctor, and he literally, like, quit patient care and went into advocacy and administration to try
Mhm.
to change that, because he could not stand the fact that they weren't given enough time with their patients to truly help them, to educate them,
Mm.
to get to the root cause of what is going on. We tend to put a band-aid on it, and
Mhm.
we'll not get good sleep, and so we drink coffee and energy drinks all day, and then we like are sad or mad, and so we eat candy and chocolate, and to counteract that. And
Yeah.
we're constantly, like, in this, like, vicious cycle with ourselves. And so we just have to, like, I don't know, we just have to try. Just pick something, pick one thing, and
Yeah.
just, try to do something good for yourself every day. And that's kind of what I go by. What can I do today that I know is good for me? And that's, as if I've focused on that and I do it, then I'm happier.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's really good advice because I know for me personally is that, I've got my mental health ups and downs, I've got my own issues. And sometimes when I'm going through a bit of a rough patch, I have my crutch foods that are not very healthy that I tend to rely on just to have that kind of really quick release of serotonin and get me kind of through maybe the next few hours or so. Um,
Absolutely.
how do people kind of get themselves out of that habit? Because I'm sure I'm not the only one.
Right, right. Oh goodness. I mean, everybody's so different that it's really hard to say, like, one thing. You know, so like I said earlier, I try to get to know people a little bit, and, like, what is triggering, the habits. Because a lot, like, women will, around their cycle, that's when they are craving the chocolate, or they are in this habit of having two little cookies with their coffee at their
Mhm.
coffee break,
Mhm.
every single day. And it's really just about kind of looking at what your habits are, and then changing the environment somehow to trigger, something else, and or removing yourself from that environment, or replacing it with something that is maybe a little bit better for you. And I can't say 100%, like, how you stop doing that, because,
Mm.
again, it could be your 20%, and the other 80% you're kind of making up for it. So I try to tell people to look at the big picture,
Mhm.
because if you do start to like make yourself feel guilty and get down on just that one thing, that's not good for you either.
Yeah.
So just be like, okay, well, I did that, and now I'm going to do something that's good for me and kind of make up for it, because it sort of evens out over the week.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That is, I guess, like it's almost like, you mentioned the eating the cookies with your coffee. You could replace the cookies with something healthier that is still
Yeah.
something you enjoy, for sure.
Yeah. I love dark chocolate covered almonds with sea salt.
Mm. Okay, yeah.
And
That
so
does
like
sound delicious.
one of the strategies is um I mean, I'm in control of the groceries. So I just
Mhm.
make sure it's not here.
Right.
If it's not here, I can't have it. And
Mhm.
so another thing that I do is, because a lot of people will kind of be snacky at nighttime.
Mhm.
I like, there's a nighttime tea that I really love.
Mhm.
And so to me, that's sort of not an indulgence, but like, it feels good.
Right,
It's
yeah.
warm. I like it. It relaxes me. And so that's something that I will do too, and kind
Mhm.
of drink a tea instead of eating something that's not good for me.
Mhm.
The other thing I will say is that if you are, again, eating the right foods, getting the right combination of foods, like, you tend to not want that. You don't crave it like you used to. Your
Mhm.
brain doesn't need that sugar fix or that caffeine fix, or whatever your vice, I guess you could say, is.
Mm.
Um, so I, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. And again, if you're having like those Franken foods, then it's not even a matter of willpower. Like, it's
Mhm.
truly chemicals that are controlling, your brain, and making you crave those. And then we usually go for them again, and then we create that same roller coaster. So
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. Now you kind of mentioned, doing something good for yourself every single day. Do you set up a certain time to do it, or do you take it day by day? How do you go about this?
I used to be a little more regimented with that.
Mhm.
Like, I had a certain workout time, or I would, I don't know, like, I would try to like get up earlier than everybody else so I could have my coffee outside and do my, sort of like a meditation, I guess.
Mhm.
But for me, it was just setting intentions for the day.
Mhm.
I try to prepare everything that I can the night before, because it makes me own my morning a lot more.
Mhm.
And I'm just, when I go to bed at a decent time, wake up early, I'm so much more productive, and I get a lot more done in the morning, and it really is empowering and motivating for the rest of the day.
Mhm.
So that's kind of what I do, but that doesn't always happen that way, because, like I said, life gets a little crazy, and
Mhm.
I've got a middle schooler that has to be at school. We leave at 6:45
Oh my
in the morning
goodness.
to get
Yeah.
her there, and then my fifth grader doesn't have to go to school until 8:45. So there's literally like a 2 hour period in
Yeah.
between the two, and that sort of rocked my world a little bit, because I don't know. It, I was so used to them going to school at the same time, and then I had like my routine. And so what I've tried to do is, in between that time, I either work out, or I'm working and doing emails and catching
Mhm.
up that way. So yeah, I think you just have to adapt.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, it's good to have like healthy habits, but you also have to be, um, you have to give yourself some grace, because life is going to throw some curveballs at you.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I guess based on your kind of experiences, do you have any kind of recommendations on other kind of practices to combine with what you've mentioned so many over the kind of course of this,
Mhm.
but also like how maybe you could improve or any improvements that you could see happen?
Well, so this is kind of how I approach my wellness clients is so I look at all the different areas of wellness. So we talk about sleep, and I give like I said, I do a thorough like health history, and we have a meeting before we even start, and I kind of open ended questions, kind of get to know them, and so after we've met and I've kind of thought about what I think will help them the most is I go through all of those aspects of wellness and I give suggestions. So if it's sleep, I'll tell them like you need to quit working at 10:30 at night. Your laptop
Mm,
is not good for you. Your bed is for sleeping.
mhm,
Maybe it's to have that nighttime tea or to stop drinking water, 30 minutes before bed because you're going to get up and go to the bathroom, in the middle of the
mhm.
night. And your quality sleep is more important at that point. So anyway, I will give them all the suggestions that I think that they can apply and help them within that like sleep category. And then with nutrition, again, everybody's different. So um, I try to make it as practical as possible and like, okay, well, you're getting takeout every day for lunch. Here's
Mhm,
what we're going to do. We're going to start um, you're going to go to Whole Foods and you're going to get like the salad bar and you're going to get a bunch and you're going to divide it up, when you get home and you're going to take these salads and you're going to get this smoked salmon from Costco and you're going to put that in there. Like, I just
Yeah.
try to give practical suggestions um, that they can use. And same thing with physical activity. Like I said, I started off as a personal trainer. So I will send them workouts or movement breaks. So
Mhm,
a lot of times, like, there's some awesome women that are like CEOs
mhm,
and they're amazing and they love their work and they're I think it's awesome, but I try to make that, like I said, tell them to set an alarm on their phone, and every 2 hours they have to get up and do squats or go take the stairs or walk around the block or do dips on your desk or like I figure out a way to incorporate movement somehow.
mhm, mhm,
Um, and that's always nice because it gives them a little energy boost and again even a workout doesn't have to be all or none. If you do like 5 of those movement breaks a day or 4, like you're getting reps in, you're moving muscles, you're doing something. So it's bite size and it's easier for them to okay, I can take 5 minutes but I can't take an hour,
mm,
so that's really like it is very individualized, I would
mhm.
say. I mean, there's a lot of, like I told you earlier, like the getting good sleep, moving your body daily, reading books, um, taking your omega 3s and your probiotics and
Yeah.
maybe a multivitamin or, so there's a lot of like, yes, everybody should be doing these, but when you apply that to people's real lives, like you do have to get more specific. So.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess putting things into very usable and accessible terms really, really helps people take those steps, even if they're baby steps. Yep.
Absolutely. And like I said, once they started, maybe it's 2 to 3 weeks and they start feeling a difference, then that motivates them to keep doing it, and to
Mm,
where it eventually becomes that lifestyle habit. So
mm. Okay, cool. Thank you so much for telling us about your practice and with nutrition
sure.
and mental health. This next segment is kind of, we call it the open mic segment, where you can just talk about anything you're passionate about that doesn't have to be related to the topic, and it's all on you.
Okay, well that's fun. Let's see. One thing I love is writing. I
Mm,
actually I've had people approach me about helping create content for me, and I'm
mhm.
like, no way. I love to write, and so I'm gonna create my own content. And someday I want to write a book, and I don't even know if it will be about nutrition.
Mhm.
Um, I just love writing, and I write articles, or I did for soccertoday.com. So that was fun because I got to share both passions of writing and nutrition. So that's definitely one thing that I'm pretty passionate about. Again, I love to read. Reading to me, if it's an educational book, again, that personal development, you're learning, it's enhancing whatever you're doing in your career or life. But I also like to read like cheesy books that take me a day to read because they're like so easy to get through and
It's food
like,
for the soul.
yes, exactly. And I had stopped reading those kind of books forever.
Mm.
I was constantly like, there's so many nutrition books out there that I wanted all of them. And I'm a tangible person, so I like to have the book. I'm not going to read on,
Mhm.
on a tablet or whatever.
Mhm.
I spend enough time on a screen. So, um, and then I was telling you, we bought that little RV or Sprinter van, and my husband and I went a few hours away with our dog, one of our dogs, and we tested it out just to make sure, like, okay, we can figure this out. We know how to, hook up the water and the electrical, and
Yeah.
so I had this book that a friend had given me, and I hadn't touched it. It had been weeks, but I took it with me on that little weekend trip, and I could not put it down. And
Yeah.
so I was like, I forgot how much I love these just no brainer, no nonsense, kind of whether it's a mystery or a love story or whatever. Like, so that is one thing that I like. I like reading those kind of books.
What book was it?
It was called Verity,
Mhm.
Verity. It's by Colleen Hoover.
Oh, I've heard
Um,
of that
it,
author. She's
it
quite popular at the
was,
moment. Yeah.
yeah, it was awesome. So that's another book that I would recommend. But um, I love to play volleyball. That was my sport in college. That sport gave me so much in life because I was small, rural, small town girl, poor family, but being good at a sport to where you got a scholarship for college, you traveled all over, you met some of the best friends of your life, like,
Mhm.
and it's like instant family, and so that's one of the reasons why I do sports nutrition, is because I want to give back to sports, because it taught me so many life lessons, and was just such an amazing experience. So I still play volleyball. I play sand volleyball in the summer. I play women's and co-ed, and I that is in my heart, soul, blood, everything. Like, I will love that sport until I die. Both of my girls play, and it gives me, great pride to see them playing a
That must be
sport.
incredible to see them play the same sport that you did growing up.
Absolutely. And, I tried not to like push it on them. I tried not to force anything, and just encourage. And we've tried soccer, we've done basketball, we've done other things too. But of course, if I'm playing it and I know how to teach them, then, naturally they're going to kind of veer towards that.
Mhm.
So that's another thing I love to do. And then traveling.
Yeah.
We love to travel. We love to see new places. We love to get to know the culture wherever we go. Try the food. Like, we're
Mhm.
huge foodies, and like, I think it teaches our kids more than honestly what academia does. So
Mhm.
yeah. So that's most of the things that I do in my spare time.
What do you have any trips planned?
Um, let's see. One of our friends is having a big birthday, so we're gonna go to Florida,
Oh,
the
yeah.
Miami Fort Lauderdale area,
That'll
and
be
a bunch of
nice.
us, rented a house, and so that'll be fun. Let's see. Our 15-year wedding anniversary is coming up,
Oh,
so
wow.
we're trying to figure out. Like, I really want to go to Greece,
Mhm.
and just the Mediterranean area in general,
Mhm.
because I'm fascinated by really the culinary culture. Like, that
Mhm.
the Mediterranean diet is
Amazing.
probably the one of the best diets that you could follow, and you would
Mhm.
be healthier because of it. So um,
And it tastes
there's no.
so good too, like, you cannot complain
Absolutely.
about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So So that, but we don't have anything specific planned for that. And then we're going to go to California to see my sister-in-law and brother-in-law and my two nephews at some point. We literally bought tickets for all four of us to go. And then we're like, oh no, we can't go during those dates. Like, Harper has track meets and there's this club
Mhm.
volleyball tournament and like Jared has a work conference. And
Oh,
so
no.
unfortunately life
Yeah.
does kind of get in the way
Yeah,
sometimes.
sometimes you book tickets and then things just happen. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely a problem, especially now after we haven't traveled so long and then travel plans fall apart and it's just even more heartbreaking.
I know. I know. Wasn't meant to be. That's the way I look at it. Like, okay, there'll be another time, hopefully.
Yeah, for sure. Um, now, good luck, first of all, for the anniversary trip. I hope you do get to go to Greece and the Mediterranean.
It won't be on our anniversary, but maybe someday.
Maybe
So,
someday. Yeah, for sure. Um, just to close off, we've got a couple of questions from our audience that they've sent in
okay.
um, that hopefully you'll be able to answer.
I hope so
Um,
too.
and so I guess the first one that we got is what advice do you have for people? We already discussed this a little bit, but what advice do you have for people who resort to comfort foods as a means of coping with mental health struggles?
Oh gosh. Again, I mean, this is a psychology that probably goes way back for whoever, it is. I actually, again, it's not taking that food away.
Mhm,
Um, Obviously, you have to understand what is triggering them to eat those foods,
mhm,
and really seeing if you can help that first before you even get to the nutrition part. Like, what is the reason why you're doing this? And um, it's funny because I majored in first. I went pre med because I wanted to be a psychiatrist,
mhm.
and I wasn't the best at the time at time management skills and
Yeah.
was playing volleyball and traveling, and my scholarship for volleyball was like that's why I was there at that school.
Right.
And
Yeah.
um, but I ended up majoring in psychology,
Mhm.
and minoring in psychology and then majoring in exercise science. And diet is so much psychological, it really is. And so I don't even think I can answer that like with a specific thing, because I would really try to work through what is causing them to go towards those comfort foods.
Mm.
Um, Teaching them to do something else besides eating the comfort foods. So
Right.
take a
Yeah.
bath, go for a walk,
Mhm.
call a friend, read a book, whatever, I would ask them activities that they enjoy or things that they love, and would see if we could kind of break that cycle with incorporating something that's non-food related.
Mhm.
Um, and then, like I said, incorporating foods that are better for them. And,
Mhm.
maybe it's teaching some portion control too. So if they do go towards those comfort foods, look, you can still have them, but let's not have the whole bag or
Yeah.
whatever. Let's just,
Yeah.
make a
In
serving size,
moderation.
put it in a bowl, take it away, put it up,
Yeah.
and then you're still having it, but you're not overdoing it.
Mhm. Yeah, it's hard to cut those out sometimes, but it's good to make changes in moderation to kind of help you
Yeah,
wean away from those, unhealthy habits.
absolutely. And, like I was saying, that when you do start to incorporate some of those better things and maybe
Mhm.
you're taking a probiotic, or things shift a little bit,
Yeah.
and so that alone might change that pattern of you going towards those comfort foods whenever you're stressed or anxious.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. Alright, the second question is, how can an individual think more positively when it comes to their body image?
um that is a great question, and
Mm. I'm sure
I
it's one
would
that a
say,
lot of people have.
oh my goodness, absolutely. um, and we're our worst critic, and we look in the mirror and we sometimes see only the bad.
Mhm.
And so it's practicing gratitude. It's thinking, changing your thought process on, okay, well, I am thicker than what I want to be. No, your body is strong, and look
Mhm.
what it allows you to do. Um, would you talk that way that you talk to yourself to your best friend? No,
Right.
probably
Yeah.
not. So you have to start talking to yourself the same way that you would, your best friend. I'm a big believer in books, podcasts, um, things that sort of relate to what you're going through.
Mhm.
So I was telling you, my oldest daughter, um, she's a teenager. She's like the whole peer pressure of how you should look and what clothes you should
Mhm.
wear and your hair, and like I didn't raise her to care about, beauty to me is within.
Mhm.
It's being a kind human. It's there's lots of things that involve um, being beautiful and smart. Like we emphasize, just being kind, doing the best you can in school, and learning as much as you can. And but I will say that, like, I send her a daily quote that has to do with positive thinking.
Mhm.
Um, and it's just those like subliminal messages of um, just thinking happier thoughts.
Mm.
And it's like when you tell your child, like, they're having nightmares, and like, you have to change the way they think before they go to bed, which is another
Yeah.
reason why we've always read books before bed, because I think
Mhm.
it sets the tone for, that subconscious dreaming, or having good sleep, because you feel that security and just good vibes. So
Yeah. Definitely cutting through that kind of negative self-talk with something positive. Even just
yeah,
hearing that
I
from the
mean,
outside can make such a huge difference.
right, right. And finding good support. Like you have to have a team on your side. And if somebody's making you feel bad, or whatever, dumb, I don't know, like, then that's not good for you.
Yeah.
You've got to find that support group, that team, whether it's your doctor, your counselor, your best friends, like whatever it might be. Like, community is huge, and having support, from someone makes a big difference.
Mm. Final question is, I drink a lot of coffee and I don't think it's very good for my brain. How do I kind of manage my coffee usage? Because I need it to stay awake, um, in order to, I guess, stop being so anxious and overthinking everything.
Well, I mean, too much coffee, caffeine can cause anxiety,
Mhm,
and it can cause you to not sleep well. And so
mhm.
then again, there's that refueling with more coffee the next day because you didn't sleep well. So,
Yeah.
um, you know, I you replace it with something that's non-caffeinated. You focus on your sleep routine, and you drink those 2 glasses of water when you first wake up, and maybe you put some lemon in there, because lemon kind of helps to detoxify the liver. And um, again, like, people think that they are dependent upon these energy drinks and coffee and so forth, but when
Mhm.
they start incorporating some of the right things, they truly don't need it. Or maybe you have a tea, an herbal tea, or a tea that has less caffeine than coffee, and so you're still, because sometimes again it's just about the ritual.
Mm.
It's not that you need the coffee, you just love having it. Because I am guilty of that. Like, I'll have my cup in the morning. If it's a like hard day, I might have a cup and a half or two.
Mhm.
But in the afternoon, my husband and I, like, because he started working from home during COVID, and we sort of got into this habit of having an afternoon cup of coffee or an
Mhm.
espresso, or and guess what? We might have a dark chocolate truffle with it, or
Yeah.
and so that's that. We had to I had to start cutting that out because
Mm.
um, it was just about the ritual than it was. I didn't need it. I just wanted it because I was so used to doing it.
Mhm.
And it was a bonding time for us. So we just started trying to let's go for a walk instead, um, or we just had a little coffee but didn't have the truffle with it. And,
Yeah.
you just sort of change. You got to start somewhere. You got to do something. You can't. It's not going to change on its own. So and again, everybody's different. So what might work for one person may not work for the other. But there's lots of people that tend to drink coffee throughout the day, and I have found that kind of like alcohol. Like if you have a drink of coffee or alcohol and you have a cup of water in between, you tend to drink less of whatever that other drink is.
So it's kind of, again, what you've constantly been saying about kind of making baby steps, but actually taking that step.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, you just have to start, and you'll feel better for doing it. People don't like to change. They get very comfortable with what they're doing. But when they do start to work towards a better version of themselves, they'll feel so much better physically and mentally.
That brings us to the end of our show. Amy, thank you so much for joining us today.
I love talking about this stuff, so
Yeah.
I appreciate you having me. I really, I'm always thankful to be able to spread the word if I can. My husband will hit me, he'll elbow me because I'll be in the line at the grocery store and I'll have to tell someone in front of me, like, did you know that this causes gut issues or whatever it might be? Like, I just cannot shut up about it because I
Yeah.
feel like I was put on this earth to help people, to make them feel better, and they don't have to listen to me, but at least I feel better about telling them.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you for converting everyone very slowly.
Very slow, one person at a time.
You've been listening to Self Improvement Atlas, the personal science insights podcast produced by LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. For more episodes like this from 10 different life management perspectives, search LMSL on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, so you can get updated on everything we have to offer. We have a wide range of topics readily available for you to check out. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider rating our show, sharing it, and subscribing to our channel, as it helps us grow and bring you more quality resources. More of our work can also be found on our website at pe.lmsl.net, where you can join our movement. I'm Aditi Kutty. Thanks for tuning in.